Hello and welcome to Hispanic Agenda, Washington's only bilingual news program. I'm Alejandro Negron. Thank you for watching and happy Thanksgiving Day weekend. On Hispanic Agenda, we'll highlight a few initiatives and organizations that focus on giving back to those less fortunate. But first, many questions remain regarding the executive action taken by President Obama on immigration, specifically the government's ability to handle millions of applications for deportation relief. We turn to Andrea Rodriguez, Legal Director at Carecen, and Edith Gonzalez Aleman, Senior Immigration Attorney at Tucker & Associates for answers. Welcome both to the program.
Thank you very much.
Good morning, Alejandro.
Well, we ran out of time last week. I said I'm going to invite you guys back.
And we're delighted to be back.
I'm so glad that you guys are back. So let me ask you, is the government capable to handle 5 million potential applications for deportation relief?
Every one of those applications has a fee attached to it, and they will be able to employ however many people or increase however many resources they need in order to do it. Every single time there's special legislation that affects a group of people. So I think the criticism comes from, well, people who are standing in line have to wait longer because the immigration authorities will have their hands tied with this job. They've done this many, many times. Every time there's legislation dedicated to a group of people, they hire and they get the resources that they need because it's all fee-based. And so we've seen this many times.
And this is an important point, the fact that this is fee-based, because, for example, there's a threat that Republicans could respond to the president's action on immigration by cutting the funding, by basically not permitting him to go ahead and execute this action by cutting off the funding. But the agency that deals with this is fee-based, correct?
Yes, that's a good point because, for example, in the most recent shutdown, USCIS continued to process the applications because they weren't depending on those allocated funds by Congress. So, that would be the same situation. For example, if Congress decided somehow to curtail any funds, it wouldn't be possible because USCIS does function on those fees that they receive for the applications.
Now, do they have the funds available now to start processing all of these applications prior to getting the fees?
That's a good question. We don't exactly know. What we do know is that the way that the program has been set up and the application period is planned to be open is within 3 months, the application period for expanded DACA, for childhood arrivals would open up, and so those are fees for $465 each application for an estimated about 207,000 eligible applicants. Those would perhaps be used as startup funds then to prepare for the application period that will be 3 months after for parents of U.S. citizens and residents, which is expected to be a much larger group.
So we already know that they're going to start with the expansion to the DACA program. Then they'll move on to the parents.
Exactly.
And you think that is precisely to get enough funds to start the process of the much larger group of parents?
It could be part of that. Okay. Also, so that USCIS won't receive this surge of applications that would be overwhelming. Also, they set a goal that for the applications that they do receive in 2015, they would be processed and determined by the end of 2016, which is a reasonable amount of time to process those applications.
Now, between the time that someone applies and 2016, what happens to those folks that could potentially be deported in that time frame? Are they protected some way, somehow? Is there something in that order and that action that protects them while they're waiting?
That's going to depend on the fine-tuning of these rules and also on the attitude of the people who are on the ground. With DACA, for example, we had some resistance from some immigration officers who weren't really very happy about the DACA program and were reluctant to stay removals of people who clearly qualified or at least had a colorable claim. With other programs...
So they were basically violating the spirit of the DACA memo.
But it really came down to individual officers, and I hope that this time around there will be a more seamless execution of the program, but that's really going to depend on, and that's the enforcement side. So the benefit side of immigration is the organization that is going to process these applications, and the enforcement side, it's their turn to hold back on people who have a colorable claim. And we hope that there will be a more seamless action in that regard this time around.
Okay.
But it's going to depend on them.
Well, many questions remain to be answered, and we hope you come back to help us answer that for our audience. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right. When we come back, attorney Joseph Maloof is here to talk to us about an initiative to bring joy to the region's less fortunate kids this Christmas. But first, we'll get into the grand jury's decision not to indict Officer Darren Wilson for the shooting death of Michael Brown when Hispanic Agenda continues. Welcome back to the agenda. This week, as expected, protests erupted in Ferguson, Missouri, and across the nation after the announcement of the grand jury's decision not to indict Officer Darren Wilson for the shooting death of Michael Brown. But are Officer Wilson's legal troubles over? Let's ask attorney Joseph Maloof, who has been following the case closely. Thank you for being here. Joseph, it's a pleasure to have you on agenda for the first time.
Thank you, Alejandro. It's a pleasure to be here.
So tell me, are his legal troubles over for the officer, now that we have the decision by the grand jury?
Not necessarily. There's still a chance that the family will pursue a civil claim for wrongful death.
Sure.
And that would allow the family to examine further whether or not the officer was justified in discharging his weapon and killing him. Now, even though the grand jury has already decided not to proceed with criminal charges, the civil case has a different standard of proof.
Is it easier?
Much easier to
Much easier to prove.
Much easier to prove. It's more likely that they could get some positive result through the civil system than the criminal system. Criminal system requires proof beyond a reasonable doubt that the state of mind of the officer at the time he discharged the weapon was with the intent to kill. It wasn't in self-defense. While in the civil case, all you have to establish is what they call the preponderance of the evidence, which is which of the two stories is more likely so. And that is, if you can look at it in terms of like the scales of justice, is just tipping the scale ever so slightly, just a tiny bit more on the side of the unjustified shooting than it is in a criminal process.
If you were the lawyer representing the family
Yes.
of Michael Brown, what would you do?
I would file a civil claim immediately and ask to interview all of the witnesses through a deposition, have my own investigation of the case, and then present it to a jury, which is selected more carefully than it is a grand jury.
That's very expensive.
It is expensive, but so is
Who
the
pays
fact
for that?
the family would have to pay for that.
Okay.
But there are a lot of interest involved here. Clearly, there's a lot of tension between police and a community,
Sure.
not just in Ferguson, but throughout the country, that would justify trying to clear this up. The way this ended, it's simply difficult for many to accept.
Do you think the government is going to act on that civil rights violation?
Yeah, I don't think so. I think that
You don't?
I don't. I think the grand jury would have acted if they felt that he discharged his weapon intentionally, and that's a requirement to do the civil rights. The civil rights case involves one more element, which is that the motivation to discharge the weapon, not only that he was unjustified in doing so, but that discharge of the weapon was done with a racial intent, with motivated by race.
And if they were to do so, of course, the government has resources at its disposal to take care of a case like this one, and maybe the family doesn't have.
Absolutely. Family would not have the kind of resources the government has.
All right, Joseph, you're also here, and the reason that you're here is because you also do a lot of work with the community. We wanted to take the time to ask you about this case, but what we want to get you to talk about is this great initiative that you are working on, that you have been working on since 1994, which is this toy drive. Can you talk to us about that?
Sure. You know, when I started practicing law 25 years ago, and I kind of saw the community being a community that needed a lot of support, I realized as a lawyer that one of the things I could do is not forget the kids during the holidays. Children don't understand, in many cases, that
we're showing pictures right now of some of the past events.
Yeah, the parents don't have the money to deal with a very stressful time. If you think about the financial pressure on the families during the holidays, between commercials, schools, and their friends, and everybody gets a visit from Santa Claus. But Santa Claus, you know, it's a fantasy. It's healthy for the kids to have that fantasy, to have the appreciation that people care about them, if that they behave well, they do things right, that good things are going to happen. And unfortunately, when money is not available, or now in our project we involve mostly children who are victims of domestic violence. So many are separated from their families, and thinking that they would have, you know, a holiday, it's difficult. So we do more than the toy, we have a celebration.
And you have a great celebration. We're looking at the pictures right now. You have a lot of very important people, VIPs of the community that show up the day that you guys are giving away the toys, but I'm kind of getting ahead of myself here. Let's talk first about how you guys are going to collect all these toys, and if people want to help, if they want to contribute, where can they do so? Well,
we're asking the public, especially businesses, local businesses, that to enjoy this moment of giving. I think giving is something that we forget to do. In an area that's so busy, everybody's looking to get, and giving is just wonderful. So we're asking businesses and people if they want to donate a toy, a new toy that doesn't incite any violence, between $1 and $10. Something that they feel they want to give, that they can drop it off. We have Mega Mart locations. All of the supermarkets have a box that they can drop the toy in, and other businesses, Dan Travels and other places that have come together to collect the toys. We're trying to raise 3,000 toys.
Well, how close are you to that goal?
I
hear you're very close.
We started with 6, Alejandro.
All right. How many you have now?
Almost 1,900.
Almost 1,900 toys.
1,900 toys. We have 10 days left, and we're very confident we're going to get to 3,000.
All right, so the audience paying attention to this right now, let's get to 3,000. Let's help Joseph Maluf and the other organizations that are helping. What are some of the other organizations that you are collaborating with in this effort?
Well, we started a little bit, back 20 years ago with 1 or 2 groups. Now we have House of Ruth, Casa de Maryland. We have the Abused Persons Program. We have the Family Justice Center. We have over 22 organizations this year. Children from the Border are coming in.
The migrant children.
Migrant children.
You guys are also helping those kids.
Yes, we have several groups that are coming in with those children. Really, there is, again, I think
a lot of reasons to give.
There's a lot of reasons to give. I think people need to join us and enjoy how great it is to not just give the toys to the kids, but to watch their faces when Santa Claus comes out, and there's dancing and
see it light up, right?
And this year we have a lot of kids that are helping us as volunteers, Alejandro. And these kids come to me and say, I'm here because when I was a little kid, I was one of the kids who was here.
Okay.
And now...
So it's a tradition now.
It's becoming a tradition.
Love that. All right, Joseph Maluf, thank you so much for your time, and congratulations on all you're doing and all your service. When we come back, for many families celebrating Thanksgiving, it can be quite expensive. Valeria Aponte from Telemundo, Washington reports on how families caught a break this week thanks to over 300 local churches and community groups when Hispanic Agenda continues. Welcome back to Hispanic Agenda. This Thanksgiving weekend, it's all about giving back for us here in Agenda, as we highlight initiatives and organizations that focus on giving back to those less fortunate. Janet Peña is the executive director of DC Doors, a nonprofit organization helping the homeless. Welcome to the program. It's a pleasure to have you on.
Thank you for having me, Alejandro.
I met you last year. I had the pleasure to be being the MC of your charity event, of the charity ball, which is coming up.
Yes,
again.
It's coming up December the 4th at the Pepco Edison Gallery Place in downtown Chinatown at 6 p.m.
And we met there, and I also met a lot of the clients of DC Doors. And I think you opened up my eyes as to the reality of people who live in our city, that are homeless people. So that's why I wanted to invite you back on the program. Anyway, let's talk about DC Doors. What do you do? For how long has it been open? How many people are you helping?
DC Doors was created in 1999 by Mary Center and the Latin American Youth Center. And recently in 2011, April 1st, we became DC Doors. So I am the founder and executive director of DC Doors. We help homeless immigrant women transition to permanent housing. We help about 80 individuals a year because they rotate in and out of our program. The way we help them is we get them back to self-sufficiency. We see them through their obstacles in life. We try to break the cycles of poverty, and we see the person develop through different phases.
I really like that you're counting on them to help themselves as well.
And it's a hard process, even for an individual like you and I that may have a roof over our head, but we're dealing with other issues. It's even hard for us to look at ourselves and say, hey, I need to work on this issue for myself.
Sure.
It's even harder for a woman or a family to say, okay, I don't have a roof over my head. Now I need to tackle multiple obstacles. The acculturation issue, the immigration issue, finding employment, finding housing, all of these issues that day to day boggle the person to, and impedes them from becoming self-sufficient.
Now, you use something called a life coach framework.
Correct. That means that we meet the client where they're at and we guide them through the process of finding themselves and tackling their own obstacles. We don't make any decisions for them. We give them the options of A, B, and C. And they are the ones that choose what path they would like to take to end their cycle of poverty.
So basically you teach them life skills, coping skills, ways to do better.
Correct.
Okay, let's talk about poverty, and let's talk about homelessness. Last year, when we met, you were telling me, you know, a lot of people, when they think of someone who is homeless, they think of someone living under a bridge.
A bag woman, somebody that's living in a cardboard box. That's not who we serve. And that's a negative connotation on homelessness. Usually the women and the families that are in our program are very hardworking individuals. They're like your hostess, they are your receptionist, they are your housekeepers. They are all the blue collar workers that run this city from day to day. It just happens that you don't know that they're homeless. You ride the metro with them, you ride the bus, you take cabs.
They're going to work.
Every day.
But they're homeless.
Correct.
That's just hard to imagine that someone working hard is
yes,
not
absolutely.
able to have a home.
According to HUD guidelines, the Housing and Urban Development Guidelines, anybody that's living in transitional living, like our program, is still considered homeless. It's not until you get permanent residency in a house that you've been there for more than 4 months that you're considered to be stable, and you're no longer considered homeless.
Let's talk also about something else. That being homeless doesn't necessarily mean that you made a whole many bad decisions and therefore you're in this predicament. It also has to do with other issues, right? Losing a job, being injured at work. Tell me about that.
Yeah, let's take, for example, when the economy had a bad downturn. A lot of the women that were coming through were very highly educated women with degrees. That didn't mean that they had made a poor choice. It meant that the economy had taken a downturn and they had lost their jobs, they had lost their benefits. If you don't have a job, how are you going to pay for the rent? How are you going to pay for shelter? So those were the women that were coming in through our program, not necessarily because they made a bad choice, but because just luck wasn't on their side.
Well, congratulations, Janet, on everything you're doing. Please tell me the date again for the ball.
December the 4th. The Pepco Edison Gallery Place in downtown Chinatown.
And your website?
www.dcdoors.org.
Congratulations. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right. We'll continue our theme this weekend on Thanksgiving as we highlight efforts to help the less fortunate. Next on the agenda, an organization that helps people who want to save on their food for this holiday season. Coming up. Welcome back to the agenda. So when you add up the cost of a Thanksgiving dinner, you realize how expensive it can all turn out to be. And you still have Christmas shopping to consider, as well as other family get-togethers. Valeria Aponte from Telemundo, Washington is here to share with us how a local organization is helping families save on food this holiday season. Valeria, welcome.
Thanks, Alejandro. For almost 25 years, the Share Food Network in Hyattsville, Maryland has offered quality food for a price 50% off the retail value. They want to make sure that everyone has food on the table, especially during the holiday season.
onions, stuffing, sweet potatoes, and a lot of turkey. The holiday season has kicked off, and first on the list is Thanksgiving, a holiday that people start prepping weeks in advance, and it all starts with the food. This line of people are picking up their pre-ordered meal in the Share Food Network.
We sell groceries to the community at a 50% discount. We do that because we seize national opportunities for purchasing all across the country and have tractor trailers of food coming in here. We have vendors who source those for us. And then all of these hundreds of people that you see are volunteers.
Volunteers from all across the DMV, making sure that everyone gets exactly what they ordered.
There are so many people that have needs, and maybe some people don't express the needs that they have, but with organizations like this and volunteers, we're able to come out and do what we can.
And many of those picking food up are organizations that will later give it for free, like the Maryland Community Connection has been doing for over 5 years. They will be making sure that individuals with disabilities and their families have a Thanksgiving meal on their table. This year, they will be delivering to 65 families.
So we just have a heart just to try to share with the individuals.
And it's a tradition that will continue, and the Share Food Network will continue to provide meals at a low price for everyone in the community.
And if you guys are interested in ordering food from the Share Food Network, you can. They're open year-long, and during the holiday season, they have a special menu.
Thank you so much, Valeria. Please check out our Facebook page and follow us on Twitter at agenda_DC. Tune in to Telemundo Washington for the Spanish version of this program. And be sure to join us again next week here on News Channel 8. Have a great Thanksgiving Day weekend, and we'll see you here next time.